Hi, I'm Victor, and today I'd like to talk to you about a question that I get all the bloody time as a game developer. Actually, 90% of the time it's not even posed as a question. I was trying to come up with what to talk about, and that's actually surprisingly hard. Holy crap, I never thought that would be the hard part of running a YouTube channel, but it is. So, I finally came up with something when somebody on Discord asked me, when somebody on a Discord server of Prehistoric Kingdom said, I wish I knew how to make games. And my response was the same as always, well then go make them. Because here's the thing, anyone can make games, anyone can learn how to make games. Of course people have different talents, and for some people it'll be harder to program, and for some people it'll be harder to model. I'm a shit artist. But that said, anyone can make games. The problem always lies in that it's such an intimidating thing that people don't know where to begin, and that people simply don't have a clue what to actually do. So they just go, well, I've got these ideas and this is what I'd like to do. And sometimes people take the next step and they try to find a team, and no one wants to be in a team with them because they're what we know in the industry as idea guys. You've got a great vision, you're a tyrannic person who wants to run everything his way, everything needs to be the way you envision it because it's your idea, but in reality you're not paying anyone or anything. It's a collective project. People don't feel engaged in your project, so nobody wants to work with you. That's usually how that works. So then you're stuck with your idea and you just give up again, or you do manage it and then you still don't know how to make games. So the key thing is to actually figure out what do you want to do and how do you want to do it. So I started out as a level designer back when Prehistoric Kingdom was still... Holy crap, my hair's awful by the way. Okay, well, whatever, close enough. When Prehistoric Kingdom was still Jurassic Genetics, we were working in CryEngine, and CryEngine is godly. Like, holy crap, lovely. As a level designer. For everyone else, it's the most horrible engine on the planet, but for level designers, it's lovely. And I did level design, so I was in love. So I really started to like level design, and I apparently have something that makes me design good levels, just looking at stuff and going like, that tree needs to be somewhere else, or stuff like that, somehow. But that's what I started with, and then at some point I wanted to go make my own games after I left the Jurassic Genetics team. I got back to it, obviously, but it's a weird story. I'll tell it sometime. But anyway, I wanted to get people as a level designer, but here's the thing, you can't get anyone as a level designer because you're basically still an idea guy. Because you're not going to make a game with just levels. I couldn't even do art, so a level designer who can't do art or program or anything besides design, you're not going to get anywhere most of the time. So if you want to make your own games, as a level designer you can work for other people. You can't go make your own games and find people to work for you for free. So what you're going to have to do is either shell out a lot of money or you're going to have to learn stuff yourself. So then how do you learn it? Well, for me, level design was just something that came naturally. You start with watching a few tutorials on how tools work, so you figure out how you actually need to do the basics. Then once you've got that down, you just kind of fuck around until you get something you're happy with. And that actually also applies to programming. People always go, well, what are good tutorial series? And I also get a lot of people that go like, well, I followed all these tutorials and I still don't know how to make my own game. Well, no, because following tutorials doesn't make you a programmer. You learn how to code. Programming is not hard. The only thing is that, like maths, that's also why people say you need maths to program, which, strictly speaking, isn't true, by the way, because I'm shit at maths, but I'm good at programming. You need insight, and you need to use logic. And if you can use logic, you can program easily in any language. The only problem is that, you need to actually figure out how the logic works, because you need to get into the flow of how do I translate this to computer language, basically. And that's the same in every single language. The only stuff that actually changes is syntax and what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. But that's not the problem. So what you should be doing is just pick any arbitrary language. Oops. I'd suggest C# or C++. No, I'd suggest C#. I'd suggest starting out with Unity and C#. And then you just look at basic tutorials like... the reason I don't suggest Blueprint, by the way, Blueprint is UE4's visual scripting thing, and I use it all the time because I hate C++ and I'm good at... You can do anything in Blueprint. But the problem with it is that if you start out with Blueprint, I think you'll have a lack of actual insight as to how the processes work, because you've never actually written it yourself, you've only seen the flowchart. So I do suggest starting with a proper programming language. So then C#. And in order to get started in that, you watch a few tutorials, and those tutorials you watch, you don't watch to exactly accomplish what they are trying to accomplish. You watch them to actually figure out, oh, what's an integer, oh, what's a float, oh, what's an array, and how do I write them down. You do that to figure out syntax, so just what things mean, basically. And from there on out, for me, how it started was, I'm really passionate about AI. I always have been. It's pretty much my favourite thing to program, so I always was like, how about I go program AI, which is obviously the most retarded thing for a newbie programmer to go and do, but I still did it. And I made moving cubes. And that was very hard. You will not believe how hard that was. They didn't have any obstacle avoidance or anything, they just moved somewhere. Hard. I do it in 2 minutes nowadays, but it took me an entire day. So, how that works is just, you figure out what you want to do, and then you really try hard to translate that to computer steps, which you're going to fuck up at all the time when you start programming. And as you do it a bit more, you'll get the hang of it, and then here's the key thing. Being a programmer has made me 20 times as competent at Google as any other human being that doesn't do programming on this planet. Because programming forces you to be analytical about what you Google, because you need to... If I want to say I move a cube, I can say, how do I move a cube in Unity? That's not going to give me the results I want, because you have so many different ways and kinds of cube movement. So you could like do interpolation, or you could do direct movement. And all of those things, they depend on what you actually want to achieve, whether they're viable or not. So that sort of thing, you actually need to be really strict about what you search for. So you really need to try and learn what do you search for. And once you've figured that out, you just use the Unity documentation and the answers you find online to questions other people have asked. And you don't just copy-paste what it says, you actually go like, alright, so it does this, but what does all of the stuff around it actually mean and do? So you actually try to develop an understanding of why the code does what it does, instead of just copy-pasting codes. That's why those tutorials that people follow and go like, I still can't program. No, you can't, because you've only learned how to copy-paste code. You haven't actually learned how the code works or what it does. And then once you get more proficient, you just know libraries and that sort of thing, and you just shake everything out. And at that point, it just becomes what step translates to what. But in the beginning, yeah, it's a lot harder. So my suggested course of action, watch a few tutorials to get down what's what, so you don't get confused about every single thing in game development. And then, so this is mainly directed at programmers. But actually also at everyone else. Watch a few tutorials so you understand something. If you're trying to learn something new, so for instance, you've just discovered this fancy thing in Unity called navmesh, by all means go watch a tutorial or two on how navmesh works, because otherwise you're going to have a hard time. But you shouldn't just be following tutorials and constantly copying them and thinking that will teach you. The thinking about it is what teaches you. So as long as you make sure that you think critically about the stuff you're actually doing, you'll be able to learn programming. If you just copy-paste it, you won't. And if you can't understand what the code you're copying actually does, you probably shouldn't be a programmer. And that's not bad. Programmers in game development still get paid nothing, basically. So you don't have to do it for the money if you want to make games. And besides that, you know, go do 3D modeling or animating or rigging or texturing. It's called texturing, not skinning. Bloody hell. And also, that's the thing, people always say skinning, and I'm like, do you mean rigging, which is giving it a skeleton and letting that move around, or do you mean giving something a texture? Because it's neither of those. But hey, I lost track of my story for a second, but yeah, basically it applies to everything. If you want to learn modeling, watch a tutorial or two to figure out what the basic controls and shortcuts and stuff are, and then just go into Blender, I'd recommend, as a newbie modeler, and just put in a background image and go nuts and figure out how it works, because that's the only way you're ever going to get used to the program. If you constantly look at a tutorial what someone's doing and copy-paste that, or copy his movements, that's not going to work, because you still won't know how to do it when it actually comes to making a model yourself. So that's the key thing, that you actually need to become independent in what you're doing, instead of just copy-pasting what other people are doing. And that's, I think, the hardest thing in learning how to game dev. Besides that, I don't know, people always ask me, how the fuck do you get all the knowledge you have? I don't know. I usually market myself as a technical artist, and a level designer, and a programmer, and basically technical artists do the overlap between the in-engine programmers and the artists. And what that means is you handle lighting and you handle materials and shaders and that sort of thing. And for that, you have to have knowledge of everything. And for some people, that just works because, for instance, I'm naturally curious. I want to know everything. So I know how Substance Painter works, I know how Substance Designer works, I know how Quixel works, I know how texturing, UVing, rigging, animating, modeling, blah 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 blah. You get the idea. I know how all of it works because I'm just naturally curious and I've tried everything. And that just gets you a level of insight which you will accumulate over time. You can't just magically watch a tutorial and you'll know everything. You have to get over that. And also something I want to talk about, and I'm not sure where I'm going to go with this. Basically, this was the core of the video. And now I'm going to talk about something that's closely related, but not quite the same. I'm going to see how far along I am in the recording. Hold on a sec. Oof, 13 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to do it anyway. No, actually I'm going to do a separate video. Next video is going to be, should you start with a big project? Because I think it's an interesting debate. It's not straightforward. For some people it really helps to start with a big project, and for some people it works the exact opposite, and it just deteriorates their learning rate. So I don't know, should you start with a big project? We'll discuss it in another video. So I'd like to thank you lovely people for watching. Please leave a like and a comment down below if you really enjoyed the video. Consider subscribing, and if you've got any ideas on what you want to talk about, or what you think I said something wrong or anything like that, or you have something cool you want to show me, absolutely tell me in the comments, or tweet at me, or yeah, tweet at me. I was going to say Facebook, but I don't currently run a Facebook page. So, yeah, thanks for watching. I hope I'll see you next time. Cheers, signing off.